Yes, everybody. How's everybody doing today? Lots of applause. Welcome to That's My Story, ladies and gentlemen. It is officially time for episode 23. We want to welcome you all. Come on in and get situated. Please drop us a comment. Please tell us where you are tuning in from. And if it's your first time here, we would like to welcome you. Really quick, if this is your first time here, That's My Story is an internet-based platform where we have a live interactive discussion with some of your favorite musicians, artists. We've done engineers. We had Mr. Tommy Davidson on a couple of weeks ago, where he was an actor, actor, comedy, and all that. Tonight, we're going to take a little bit of a different angle, but we allow our guests to come on and to give you the in-depth information regarding their journey and their area of expertise. Ken, Shelly, how you guys doing tonight?
Everything is great.
All right.
Thank you. How you doing? How you doing, Ken?
I'm scratching my ears, so it's gotta be good. No, it's good, man. We're excited about tonight, as every Thursday.
Every week. Every week.
By the way, I
have a platform you're on, ladies and gentlemen. If you're on Facebook, please take a moment to like that Chairman of the Board page. Share it with your friends. We appreciate you guys helping us build up our following thus far. If you're on YouTube, the official Chairman of the Board page, please like that page. Please subscribe. And as I say, the content will come directly to your phone, and all you have to do is click. It gets no easier than that. Well, let me take a moment to introduce my co-host. To the right of the screen, representing the ICATS as well as the Honeycomb, we have the phenomenal vocalist as well as dancer entertainer, also the wife and founding member Clark White. Please make some noise at home.
Yes.
Thank you.
And at the bottom of the screen, we have a wonderful musician, vocalist, as well as producer and arranger, representing the city of Detroit, now residing in South Carolina. Please make some noise for Mr. Ken Knox.
Ken.
From the Chairman of the Board.
Oh, yes, the Chairman of the Board.
Gotta get that in. Because here's the deal, man. It's a long legacy that needs to be mentioned.
Absolutely.
General Johnson, Danny Woods. If it wasn't for those two guys, I wouldn't be here. So
and if it wasn't for those guys, I wouldn't have any hits.
That's right.
We all in it together.
We came from the same stable. Yeah.
And great.
So here's the deal. Our host, a great guy, great keyboardist, great person, a great father, Mr. Jerry Midas Hardison.
Yes.
Thank you. Yes, indeed. We're excited, folks. Normally, our guest is someone that's on the stage. Tonight, we're taking a little bit of different approach and let you get a little insight with someone who kind of works behind the scenes. And when I tell you he works, he works. He definitely works. Yeah. So I guess everybody's coming in and getting situated. Grab you something to eat. Grab you something to drink. And like I said, he definitely works, and he has such a vast resume that we couldn't even begin to scratch the surface on tonight's episode. Can I get I forgot to do our toast, guys. We're going to do it real quick here to Mr. Paxton Baker on episode 23. So, ladies and gentlemen at home, without any further ado, please help me welcome a businessman, an entrepreneur, and philanthropist who has served in the entertainment, music, sports, and production industries for over 30 years, Mr. Paxton Baker, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you. A blessing and a joy to be with you all. Let me get my cup into it.
Okay. Are we ready now? Here we go. You ready, Paxton? Here we go. All right.
Thank you.
And I got to add one thing. And a dear family friend.
Oh,
Yes, definitely a dear family friend. And yes, Shelly, thank you for making that connection. Paxton, how you doing today, sir? It's a pleasure to have you on the show with us.
Thank you. It is my blessing and my joy to be here. And Miss Shelley Clark White could not have overstated it. The love I have in my heart that I share for her and her husband is second to none. So when she asked me, it was an immediate yes, of course.
That's
where do you want me to be?
Yes, it was. And then I had to pick myself up off the floor.
That's all right.
And I said, honey, he said yes. And he said, yeah, that's my boy.
And my girl. So yes, both the above.
It's indeed a pleasure. Now, a popular question we like to start our show off with. We have a guest on. This show was actually birthed during due to the pandemic. So we like to ask our guests, being in the entertainment field and whatnot, how have you been keeping yourself busy?
Great question to start with. Initially, when the pandemic first hit, much like everybody else, just kind of stunned, picking yourself up off. You look at your savings portfolios and your investment portfolios, and everything got dashed up pretty badly. And you start to just kind of think like, how am I going to make it through this? And I live in metropolitan DC. I live in Chevy Chase, Maryland, and my office is about 10 minutes from my house. And so I pretty much dug in. My wife and family was very supportive. They all dug in here in the house, and we had no idea how far reaching everything was going to be. So I just went to work, lost a lot of business early on, and then dug in, and every day went in. One of my business partners is an accounting firm, so we were deemed essential service. And so I went in, I worked every day, and kept my exercise regimen up, and tried to be as focused as possible, and not allow myself to be depressed, not allow myself to get down, which was very difficult. And then in Maryland in May, our governor opened it back up to 10 people or more. Then it was 25 people or more. So I'm a basketball enthusiast and have a half court at the house, and we just started playing basketball and kept in shape. So fortunately, it's been productive and kind of have turned some corners, and I've lost some friends along the way, which has been pretty painful. And just trying to keep focused, candidly, just trying to keep focused.
Right. Yeah, I understand. Seems like diversification is key to this whole situation that none of us have had experience with before. So keeping busy definitely helps the mental focus and things of that nature. I agree with you 100%.
Absolutely.
Now, where were you born, Pax? I know you were telling us yesterday you've lived many places when we did our sound check yesterday. But where were you born?
Born at White Memorial Hospital in Compton, California. Anthony Anderson's a good friend, and we both consider ourselves kids from Compton. So born in Compton, and right around the period of the Watts riots, my family moved from Los Angeles to San Bernardino, California. Then we ended up moving to Rialto, California. And there's one of those like little photos you look back and say, was that me? Yes, with the big high hair.
Yes, that's a wonderful arm.
Yeah, that would have been about circa around 71, 72 or something like that. So moved to Rialto, and then ended up living in California until I was 14. And then I went to a boarding academy outside of Philadelphia called Pine Forge Academy. And that pretty much began my love for travel. And I pretty much have been traveling from place to place from about 1974 to I moved. I was in DC between 82 to 84, and then I moved back in January of 1990, and I've been back here in Washington area since then. And so this is the longest I've ever lived anywhere, 30 years now that I've been here. And I very much consider myself now kind of a transported Californian on the East Coast. I love the transition. I love the change of seasons.
Yes.
I actually like the winter, as odd as that may sound. And like the different kind of sports that comes off of that as well. So I canoe in the winter on Sunday mornings from December through the end of March, and then I started playing basketball.
Okay. Well, it sounds like in your earlier years, your bags stayed packed quite a bit.
Very much so. Very much so. It's I think travel is overwhelmingly fascinating. Each of you have had your share of travel. I know Shelley does a lot of it now. She hangs out with the band on different tours and things like that. But there's an insatiable appetite that I have for travel, and it's been one of my greatest teachers. And being able to visit various cultures across the world, listen and learn and just watch different things from different aspects of different people. And certainly one of my greatest blessings, one of my greatest challenges, one of my greatest loves has been travel. And I think my mother kind of planted that seed in me, my mother, and then reading different stories early on as a young person. So I'm still consider myself a traveler and very much an observer of world culture. And I've visited all 50 states as well.
Okay, awesome.
Wow.
World traveler. So,
Yes,
sir.
prior to joining BET, you were president and founder of PKB Arts and Entertainment. And I think you were incorporated in 1988.
That's correct. Actually, I mentioned being born in California, and one of my early big brothers in my life, and that's like my friendships have been kind of like truly the core of my life. And my greatest blessing was a brother named Philip Michael Thomas. And Philip and my oldest brother were best friends when I was younger, and our families grew up together. And in '88, I was actually living in Atlanta, where I moved for about a year after I graduated from Temple University. And I ran into Philip. He was in Andy Young's office, and I was working for the city at the time. And we just kind of rebooted our friendship. And I ended up moving to Miami the last year and a half of Miami Vice. And while I was there, he encouraged me to incorporate my company and to start running something for myself. And I did it. And not long after that, I just took a chance and pitched the government of Aruba to produce the Aruba Jazz and Latin Music Festival, which I pitched them in '98, got the gig in '90. And from there on, started my international production business, producing music festivals. At one point, we were doing about 10 festivals across the world annually. Wow. Yeah. And so that coupled with travel and tourism and this kind of music, and I met the execs from BET in '91. In '92, started to work with them, and that led to a 27-year relationship at BET.
That's awesome, man. I see when you were doing these festivals, you had some hell of an acts. Gloria Estefan, Herbie Hancock, Santana.
Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Earth, Wind, and Fire, yeah.
Earth, Wind, and Fire, oh yeah, absolutely. You have to throw the guys in, but that's one heck of a thing that you know. What inspired you to do this? I think you just touched on a little bit. What was your real inspiration for that? Your real inspiration?
Love of music, truly love of music. And my mother started playing records when I was probably about 4 or 5 years old. And originally in the house, it was gospel, then it was European classical music. Then it was Black classical music, which is jazz music. And then right on the heels of that, I'd say in 1972, it's interesting, my older brothers and sisters' record collection was the ones that really stood out was Earth, Wind, and Fire, Dionne Warwick, the Isley Brothers, and Ramsey Lewis. And the first album I ever collected was Ramsey Lewis's, it was called Mother Nature's Son, but it was a Beatles White Album. And years later, I learned that it was produced by Charles Stepney.
Oh, man.
So that was the tie that Ramsey Lewis tie with Charles Stepney producing that, the orchestration, the chords, harmony, everything. And then, you kind of hearing the Beatles lyrics in your head and then Maurice White. And I've ended up, been blessed to develop friendships with Dionne, with Ramsey,
awesome,
with Ron Isley, Stevie, Verdine, Ralph Phillip, and all of the music. It was to me just one summer. It was the summer of 71, like 71. I listened to all those records, and as I grew up, I ended up being blessed to develop friendships with each and every one of them. So it was just an incredible full 360. Yeah. But I would, without exaggeration, would say the two greatest influences on me musically was Earth, Wind, and Fire, and also Stevie Wonder.
Well, I'll tell you what, Step was, as they call him, he was, I love his work as well, Charles Stepney. And I think he did a tremendous thing for Earth, Wind, and Fire. In my mind, and a lot of musicians that I talked to always spoke highly of Charles Stepney. Now, you also, like most of your acts, some of your festivals were jazz festivals. I see you're high up in jazz as well, right?
Yes, yeah, and so all that music that I literally, as a young person, was listening to, ended up having just an influence on my life and my career. And from the jazz side, having had a friendship with Dizzy Gillespie, Herbie Hancock and I have been friends since 1991. We got certified scuba diving together in Aruba in 1991 and ended up touring all of Europe with him that summer. It was a tour with Wayne Shorter, Herbie, Omar Hakim, and Stanley Clark. And Stanley I met when I was in college at Temple University in 1984. And we've been friends all these years. And allow me to pause for just a hot second.
Sure.
For Soul Train, I produced that show for 5 years, the Soul Train Awards from 99 to 2014. And 1 year, Dougie Fresh, who was on the tape that you saw a little bit earlier, Dougie and I are brothers, like just truly love him. And he's my younger brother. And so Dougie told me I had to hear this band called 1500 or Nothing.
Oh, yeah,
and,
that's nice.
Yeah, they're amazing producers, right?
Nice,
so
Mars.
Dougie said, man, you have to come hear this band. So for me at that point, it was, all right, well, let me go hear this band, but let me bring my big brothers and elders with me. So I called Verdine, and I forgot what he was doing, but he said, all right, man, I'll join you there. So it was Verdine, it was Bill Withers, it was Ray Chu, who was the producer of the award shows, right? The Apollo, BET Awards, etc. And Stanley Clark. And they all came over to meet at the 1500 studios. And these young brothers over there, we walked in, they were like, wait a minute, hold up, man. So they're like this much music royalty in our shop at the same time. Yeah. So their father actually worked at a club in Chicago that Verdine played at when he was a kid. Like before he came to LA at 19, Verdine played at this club, and they just so as we're sitting in the studio of 1500 in the lobby, so literally Dougie tells me I have to come over there. So I've got Bill Withers, I've got Stanley Clark, I've got Verdine White, Ray Chu, and we're sitting in the lobby and start swapping in a little lobby in Inglewood. And we start swapping stories. So I didn't know that Verdine studied with Stanley Clark early on when he got to Los Angeles. And so I'm learning that. And then also that Bill Withers' very, very first concert ever, the first time he ever went live on stage, his band was Stanley Clark and Lenny White.
That's an all-star cast in one room.
I tell you, that's a lot of jazz. A lot of jazz. Wish I could have been there.
So Paxton, as you were mentioning, you're president of BET, vice president of BET Event Productions from many years.
There we go. I can see again. I'm not sure what's going on. I'm right here by the router is saying be closer to the router.
You're back.
Anyway, so Bill Withers' very first show on stage was with Stanley Clark and Lenny White, and Stanley was telling me like literally his very, very, very first performance ever performing live was with him. So the unity of that, and then as we start listening to music, at one point, Verdine, they're playing all the different range of music that they know, from Jay-Z to Beyonce to Earth, Wind and Fire, the OJs, everything just kind of going across the board. Verdine turned to me and said, hey man, the young brother's playing the Changes and Reasons better than I do. He said, you need to sign this band. So we started him as the house band for the Soul Train Awards. And then Greg Phillinganes ended up coming in and working with them along with Ray Chu. And it was just by way of story. So I don't mean to harp on it, but Verdine has been a part of my life and my listening from a music perspective from almost the beginning of my hearing music.
Yeah.
So
I heard how you guys stayed up all night listening to music. I mean, all night. Y'all didn't go to sleep at your house, right?
No. Around 3:30 in the morning, Verdine came in town one time before the band played. I think they were playing out in Virginia, the Jiffy Lube Pavilion, and they were touring with Chicago. And I have all of Earth, Wind & Fire's music catalog, the outtakes, everything that Earth, Wind & Fire has done. I have, and I'm an Earth, Wind & Fire nut, much like Questlove, by the way, Earth, Wind & Fire nut. Sure. And so I'm playing Verdine songs that he had not heard probably in 30 years or more. And I'm saying, do you remember this? Do you remember that? Do you remember this? So finally, around 3:30 in the morning, Verdine goes, we should probably go to bed. 3:30 in the morning. I got to go to work today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we want to talk a little bit about you being president of BET Event Productions, and tell us about some of the award-winning shows that you produce for BET.
Certainly. So on the BET front, my first award show I produced at BET was the Billboard BET Jazz Awards, and we did that in 2001. And I worked with a guy named Howard Applebaum at Billboard magazine, and that was kind of like cutting my teeth. Jazz music has been a part of my life, and I've met pretty much everybody in the space. I started producing jazz concerts in the mid 80s at Temple University, and they had a 24-hour jazz station called WRTI, and that's where I cut my teeth on air. Prior to that, I was DJing clubs and parties where I went to when I went to junior college in Pittsburgh. But on air at WRTI, I got a chance to listen to just an amazing amount of music. I met Sun Ra, who was like an adopted grandfather to me, and pretty much everybody who came through Philly, Sonny Fortune, Rufus Harley, who were from there. Any of the musicians that came through, they had a couple different clubs there: Chestnut Cabaret, Jules, and Stanley Clark's from Philadelphia, Kevin Eubanks, who's been a lifelong friend from Philadelphia. Yeah. So I kind of grew my chops on the jazz side, then crossed over into R&B production, and in Aruba got a chance to work with a lot of great Latin musicians as well, Celie Cruz being one of them. Mm-hmm. And so just truly a fascinating love of music. And when I was younger, like I would have never thought that I would have had the opportunity to work with as many musicians as I did. And so I mentioned crossing over from jazz into pop music. In the mid to late 80s, I started like being more aware of TV award shows, and the Soul Train Awards, of course, was one of the ones that I saw as a younger person. And in the late 80s, I actually went to the award show a couple different times. And it's like, wow, I could actually do this, which is what I felt in college when I started producing music concerts. I was like, I actually could do this. Yeah. So I met Don Cornelius probably around 88, 89. And it was the after party, and he was talking to Teddy Riley, and I waited there forever to come over and say hello to him, and walked up to him, told him how much I admired him, and typical Don Cornelius fashion. Thanks, young fella. Thanks, young fella. Take a note on that one. Thank you on that one. Yeah. So I produced the Source Awards at BET in 06 and 07. And I got a chance to work with Dave Mays and Benzino, and that was an experience.
Oh, Benzino, okay.
Yeah, I think I'm the only producer ever to produce that award show twice.
And they had the Source magazine, right?
That's correct.
Okay, gotcha.
That's correct. And it's one of the greatest storied histories in all of the award shows. Mm-hmm. And I had a collection of experiences producing that. And I was going from jazz music into the core of hardcore hip hop and pop hip hop and classic hip hop. But a lot of the people who I worked with there were very giving, and they really wanted it to be an amazing experience. And so I worked with Source for those couple of years. And then after that, it was the Soul Train Awards. One of my colleagues.
That's my next question. The Soul Train is something very near and dear to me that I want to talk to you about, because of course, Honeycomb was the first artist ever in history to appear on Soul Train.
Wow.
The very first artist. And then, of course, the second time we did the Soul Train cruise. And matter of fact, it was booked that date for the Honeycomb by our producer, Taz Cole, you met in the first. And I think that was when Michael Mitchell was there.
That's correct.
Right.
That's correct.
Okay. So we want to start with your relationship with Eddie Levert, mm-hmm. and how it came around to Don.
So Eddie Levert, I probably would have met him early on in the 80s when I went to Temple, because he used to come into every summer. They came into a venue called the Robin Hood Dell in Philadelphia, and I met him then as in my 20s, and had a number of opportunities to work with him, and met him at a number of different events for BET. So I worked with BET from a consultant perspective from 91 to 99. Then I started running the Jazz Channel in 99, which ended up morphing to BETJ, then Centric. And so I just, for a number of times over the years, and Eddie does a golf tournament in the summer, and he sponsors it and raises money for young people in Ohio. And every year that I was there, I sponsored it at BET and just grew to love him as a friend. And he became almost like a surrogate pop to me. I have a number of big brothers and I have a number of surrogate fathers. So Eddie Levert, Harry Belafonte are two of my surrogate fathers and have had a really long influence on me. And I just think he's, as a human being, he's a tremendous person. He's got a very big heart. He's a big hugger, and that deep baritone voice of his when he laughs, it feels like the whole world is laughing when Eddie laughs, and like it kind of brings you all into it to him as a person. And when you get a hug from it, you feel like you're in heaven. Yeah. So Eddie's just, I think the world of him as a person, and so my friendship kind of grew into that. So meeting Don Cornelius the second time, actually, we were producing the Soul Train Awards. We were going into our second year, so it would have been around 2010. Right. And the OJs got honored that year at the BET Awards for their Lifetime Achievement. And so Don came in, he was introducing them. He came into the dressing room, and Eddie puts his arm around me and walks me over to Don and says, "Hey, Don, this is Paxton. He's actually the executive producer of the Soul Train Awards now. And he's a son to me. And, just want you to meet him and embrace him." So we get a nice hug. And I invited him actually to come onto the show and let us honor him. And he put his hand on my shoulder. He says, "Young fella," the same thing he had said to me, 20-some years ago, "Young fella, you got this now. This is yours now." Right. And I asked him, would he, just give us an opportunity to honor him. So he told me, "Think about it." So it ended up didn't work out, but it was. You tried though. An honor again, and to become producer of that show was. It's like just humbling would be too small of a word on being able to produce that show and bring it back to air, and the various awards that different people. So Anita Baker, Shaka Khan, Charlie Wilson, Ron Isley, Earth, Wind and Fire, Dionne Warwick, Sweat. That looks very familiar.
Shelly's got something she wants to show you.
Very familiar. All the people have silver ones. You want a few with the gold. Well, all the other awards were gold except the Lifetime. The Legend Awards were in gold.
That was the Legend Award, right?
Yeah. Everything else was silver. Everything else was silver. That's correct.
Heavy. This thing is so heavy. We had to FedEx it back.
Shelly, that's exactly what we wanted. Shelly, that's what we wanted. We wanted one of those awards where when you lift it, when people receive and they lift it, I wanted the reaction to say, "This is heavy." Something the wind won't blow around or anything like that was the idea behind what went into that particular award. And we searched it. As you know, like when you're producing an award show, something that like an award, like the weight of it, the stature, the feeling, it makes all the difference in the world from a lifetime perspective. Yes. Yeah. So there was that. So no, Soul Train, I grew up listening to it. I grew up loving the music. And then to be able to produce the show was, it was almost like every year you were a kid in a candy store. So in putting that together, there was so much emotion, everything else in there. But one of the things is, Shelly, is I didn't know until Verdine had told me that the band had never been on the original Soul Train series. The Earth, Wind and Fire never appeared on Soul Train. And when I was like, Verdine was telling me all this, he said that when Maurice wanted to do it, he wanted to do the show, but he wanted to do it live and not lip sync. And it didn't work out for him because they did do some live Soul Train shows, but they were either the band was touring when they were doing the live shows, and the predominant amount of the shows on Soul Train were lip synced. Right. So there was a series of live shows, ironically enough, that Time Life Music came out with, but Earth, Wind and Fire never was on the show. So for me, it was like pulling a full circle opportunity to bring Earth, Wind and Fire on the Soul Train and write something that hadn't been done in the 70s and 80s and 90s. That was long overdue. And what a way to come on than to get the Legend Award, that gold trophy that Shelly just picked up. To get the Legend Award in real time. So
now my arm hurts.
Great experience.
So Paxton, we want to talk to you about your BFF, your best friend, Wolf Blitzer, who I just saw on the news a while ago. He's a CNN anchor. And tell us about your relationship with that and how he got on Soul Train.
So in 2006, I was given the opportunity with a family called the Lerner family here in Washington, D.C. They're a real estate development family, and they own about 30 major buildings, town centers, malls in the Metro DMV, the D.C., Maryland, Virginia area. And one of Wolf's best friends is Ed Cohen, who's married to Debbie Lerner of the Lerner family. It's a son and two daughters. And so I got to meet Wolf around that time, around the baseball stadium. Originally, we bought the team. We were in RFK Stadium, and then we built a new stadium, the Nationals Park. Mm-hmm. So I'd see Wolf at baseball games. We'd periodically say hello to each other and kind of just kick it. It was always, warm, but kind of you don't really know somebody that well, so you just kind of shake their hand and say, hey, good to see you again. Kind of thing.
Right.
So, and in Washington, by the way, let me just deviate for one hot second. In DC, when you meet people who are politically motivated or politicians who've been in Washington for a while, you will find a little quirk that they do.
Okay.
And that is when you meet them, they will say, good to see you. Mm. And so you're thinking to yourself, have I ever met this person before? Like, have I met them before? Because he's saying, good to see you. So after observing that for over about a 6 or 7 year span of time, I asked a friend of mine who's a physician here, and I said, why do people from DC always say good to see you? So we were at the Shriver's house in Potomac, Maryland, the Kennedy Shriver family, and he said, well, I meet so many damn people. I don't know if I've met them before, so the safe thing to do is say, good to see you. You never make the mistake of saying, nice to meet you. Right.
Good to see you.
Good to see you there. So it's a DC word. Observe in the future, watch in the future, you'll see that happen on a regular basis. Nice. So over time, I'd see Wolf, it became more regular. And so one night at the Kennedy Center has the Mark Twain Comedy Awards. And one night I'm at the dinner with Ed and Debbie and my wife, Rachel. And Wolf leans over and he says, hey, Paxton, what are you up to? So I said, this dinner was on a Thursday night. I was leaving on Sunday to go to Atlanta to produce the first Soul Train show in 2009. We shot it at the Georgia World Congress Center. And so I said, I'm going down to produce the Soul Train Awards. And so Wolf said, he leans across the table with a real serious look on his face, and he says, Soul Train Awards? I want to be in the Soul Train Awards. Wow. I'm overwhelmingly perplexed. Okay, Wolf, why do you want to be in the Soul Train Awards? And he said, well, I'm from Buffalo, New York. And I'm like, okay, well, you truly have me now. Buffalo, New York. Like, what does Buffalo possibly have to do with Don Cornelius and the Soul Train Awards? So he says, hey, man, I'm from Buffalo, and every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock, I wake up and watch Don Cornelius and the Soul Train.
Wow.
Right.
And he said, I was the hippest white boy in my class. And I got my street cred because I watched street cred. So he starts naming artists who'd been on the show. He named Gladys Knight. He named Shaka with Rufus.
Wow.
Cool and the Gang, and he's naming these acts. And I'm looking at him like, wow, this guy's actually serious. He knows some history from it. And so he says, when are you taping the show? And I said, well, we're taping it on November 2nd, and next Tuesday. So he pulls out his BlackBerry. They still had BlackBerries back then, and he pulls out his BlackBerry, and he looks it up, and he says, oh, that's tough. It's off your election night. But they decided a lot of local races and important bills and things like that, amendments or that the general public is voting on. Mm-hmm. And so he says, but if you ever change the date and change it to another time, I'm like, listen, if I change the date, okay, then I'd be glad to be on that. So sure enough, the next year I changed it to Wednesday, the 10th of November. We taped the second year. Okay. And we did that up in Cobb County at the Cobb Energy Center. Yeah. And so I wrote Wolf in July, and I said, hey, you threw out to me if I ever change the date, or we changed it to the Wednesday after that Tuesday, would you like to be in the show? And he wrote me back. He sent it to CNN, the clearances that they needed to do. And within about 2 days, he hits me back and he says, yeah, I'd like to be in the show. So then round two now is, how do you incorporate Wolf Blitzer into the show? So creative director for the show is a gentleman named Bart Phillips. And I went to Bart with this and said, hey, I want to put Wolf Blitzer in the show. And he said, Baker, you're crazy. You're put a square white dude in the show, and like, where are you going with this? So I said, hey, brother, you're head of creative. Figure it out. Right? You're creative. You figure it out.
Yeah.
So they came back with the skit. So just to give you a little context, the first year we had Terrence Howard and Taraji Henson host the show. Same thing year 2. The first year we honored Shaka Khan and Charlie Wilson. The next year was Anita Baker and Ron Isley. So on the 2 incredible, clearly queens of the music on the female side, but on the men's side, both who had made their names in a band, like in the Isley Brothers and with the Gap Band, with their brothers. So a lot of commonalities in that regard.
Right.
Year two now, we introduced Wolf Blitzer. So the first year of the show, we got 300 million media impressions, and we broke the record for the highest rated Soul Train award show ever. Wow. It's been on the air for about 5-6 years. The second year we came back, and the skit was Terrence and Taraji are on stage. Wolf comes out. We put the Situation Room banner and music up on the air, and they both said, Wolf, what are you here for? Like, is there a crisis with the president? What's going on, et cetera, et cetera. Right. And he says, no. And so he says, hey, I'm here because I want to learn how to do the Dougie. And so out pops Dougie Fresh. And Terrence and Taraji were saying, we want to show you. He's saying, no, I want to learn from the master. Dougie comes out with the music, do the Dougie, and everybody who's in the audience went crazy.
It's funny you should mention it because we have an awesome clip.
Is that right? Okay. All right.
Hold that thought.
One of my best friends in the world is Wolf Blitzer. And I had known Wolf for about 5 or 6 years before we became really, really good friends. And it started with him saying to me that he wanted to be in the Soul Train Awards. And ended up putting Wolf in the Soul Train Awards. And Dougie Fresh came out. We taught Wolf how to Dougie.
Learn the Dougie from the man himself. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage, Dougie Fresh.
That's awesome.
Great stuff.
He was really into it.
He was into it. 100%. They'll let a piece of that Go, Shelly. Here we go. One of the other ones that was on the show that was a lot of fun with Wolf was that year Eminem won for Best Hip Hop Artist. And so we got the envelopes delivered during the rehearsal. And so I walked over to Wolf and I said, Wolf, Eminem actually won for Best Hip Hop Artist. Keep it under your hat. I said, but he's not be able to be here tonight. So would you accept the award on his behalf? So Wolf said, I got this. I got it. Wow. So during the show, we come out, announce it, Best Hip Hop Artist. Wolf walks out and he says to the audience, he says, ladies and gentlemen, Eminem can't be here tonight, but who better in this whole audience to accept this award on his behalf than me?
That's awesome.
Everybody loses it again. Wolf had 2 great moments in that show. But that year was when the Soul Train Awards crossed over to White America. and to the general market. We went in 1 year from 300 million media impressions to over 2 billion media impressions in 1 year.
Wow.
And the biggest driver of it was with Blitzer. So his wife Lynn would tell you a whole lot of stories of Wolf Sits the Soul Train Awards.
Yeah, that's awesome.
He crossed over and became the top anchor for the African American marketplace, and is a beloved figure in Black households. Because we ended up putting in the show for about 4 or 5 years. Every year Wolf could make it, he came over to the show, and he's been a great friend, and we've traveled a lot since then together. We go to the NBA All-Star weekends together, and I love him as a brother and a friend, and he's an amazing person. And we got the depth of our friendship was heightened by Soul Train.
Yeah, that's great, man. That's great. Well,
nice.
we want to talk to you about some of your notable and historic specials, your concerts and documentaries that you have produced. In 2013. Let's see. I think you were executive producer of United Nations Day.
Yeah, with Stevie Wonder.
Wonder.
So Stevie is a UN ambassador of peace, and Stevie is the first human being to produce United Nations Day, to have the rights to be able to produce it. So our chairman, Deborah Lee, called me up one evening and said, "Hey, Stevie's attorney gave me a call, and they're kind of working with this concept, and I'd love you to get involved in it on our behalf, and let's see what kind of comes of it." So I ended up I talked to Rob Light, who's the head of music at CAA, also Earth, Wind, Fire's agent, and we started to talk conceptually about it, and we're kind of moving back and forth between Tim Francis, his attorney, a few different people. Then finally, the first conversation I had with Stevie, who I'd met a couple times before but didn't really know, the first conversation I had with him was almost 3 hours. And it was a Saturday afternoon, and my wife had the kids. She had taken them to the park a couple different times to their school, and she came back, "Are you still on the phone?" So I talked, literally it was almost a 3-hour phone call.
That's
and
awesome.
I'm also a Stevie Wonder nut and a fan, just like I am with Earth, Wind, Fire. And Apple Music put out something early on when they first launched iTunes. It was every song Stevie Wonder had ever done.
Really?
His outtakes, everything, like the whole Motown catalog. One of them was a drum solo he did playing behind Jimi Hendrix.
Oh, wow.
It was like literally, it was everything Stevie had ever done. It was 585 songs was the catalog. Outtakes, songs that never got used, etc. So I bought that when I jumped on, and so therefore I had the whole Stevie catalog, and I had a lot of those songs beforehand, but to have that whole catalog together was incredible. So we talked music, we talked life, we talked philosophies, and to be able to talk to one of your iconic heroes of all time and that was my literally first introduction to him of note. It was pretty incredible. So we ended up producing United Nations Day, and we brought in, Sting was in the show, BB Winans, Stephanie Mills, Valerie Simpson, Wycliffe, Dougie, Freddie Jackson. We had India's foremost violinist, Maddie Subramanian. We had the Dirty Dozen Jazz Band out of New Orleans. It was just a compendium of music, and Malcolm Jamal Warner hosted the show, and it was quite the experience. And being able to work with Stevie, who is very involved.
I could imagine.
He's extremely involved in his productions. It was literally a lifetime experience working with him, and something I'll never forget. And right after he did Soul Train for us as well, which was just a big favor and a beautiful thing for him to do.
And just a little fun fact that United Nations Day was celebrating the 67th anniversary of the UN's peacekeeping and crisis management efforts around the globe. And you also served as the executive producer of the Marian Anderson 65th anniversary celebration of the historic concert on the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, lifetime moment as well. As I think all of us as African Americans, we grew up, that was like one of the great moments in Black history, was that concert that she did on the Mall. And ironically enough, the start of that was actually, she wanted to go to Constitution Hall And what a lot of people did not know about Marian Anderson was that she was an activist, as was Rosa Parks, and they were trained for that moment. It was not accidental that Rosa Parks didn't get up and move to the back of the bus.
Good point.
So Marian Anderson was an activist in her own right, and she used music as her activism, and a prolific artist, one of the greatest artists our country's ever known. And the concert was supposed to have been in Constitution Hall. They actually applied for a license to do a show in Constitution Hall and were refused that opportunity. And when that happened, the stage ended up being set for her to go outside and do it in front of the Lincoln Memorial. So we ended up, we applied, but the time of year was kind of, I don't know how much of you've been to Washington. Washington in August, September, it can be swelteringly hot, like brutal hot. So we ended up doing the show. Yeah, exactly. We ended up doing the show in Constitution Hall.
Yeah.
And I brought Malcolm in as well for the host. He does an amazing job as a host. And by the way, I should just mention, just on a brief note, that when we did Earth, Wind & Fire at the Fox Theater in Atlanta, Malcolm was the host for their segment as well because of his tremendous love of Verdine White and the Earth, Wind & Fire band. And he knows the lyrics to pretty much every Earth, Wind & Fire song. So getting him for that, like pretty much everywhere I went, I had a group of people who I worked with, and Malcolm was certainly one of them. He's a very dear brother and friend. So he hosted that, and along with Wolf Blitzer as well, Malcolm and Wolf. And Jesse Norman was one of the hosts for that as well. So I was approached by the Washington Performing Arts with this concept and this idea. We ended up taking on, and we worked with the City of DC's Office of Cable Television. We worked with a number of other city entities and the Washington Performing Arts and put this concept together to do the anniversary show. So we had a 350-person choir. The choir was so big that they could not fit on the stage, so we ended up sitting them on different sides of the stage, and it was pretty much all the major choirs in Washington D.C. that kind of came together for it. And then we had Wolf, Malcolm, the president of Howard University. Who else do we have there? It was a wide array of people who were performers in it. MC Hammer was one of the hosts for it, moderators and host. And it's a great musical celebration. And B.B. Winans, lifelong friend since 1988. B.B. and his brothers performed there as well. So it was Alison Cambridge and other operas. So we had opera, gospel, hip hop,
a little bit of everything.
Special, and then a lot of the members of the Congressional Black Caucus as well participated in it. So it was a big celebration. I love production. It's something that I have to say I do miss now, and one day make it around to it again. But that was just like being able to I felt like Quincy Jones, to pull together all these different things and different people who were incredible. And when you see musicians come together in that kind of spirit, there's nothing quite like it. I mean, like people for the love of the project. So,
absolutely. Yeah. And I have one more here. Let's see. You were also involved with the 50th anniversary concert celebrating the historic march from Selma to Montgomery in Alabama.
Yeah, that was words like incredible are candidly a little bit too small. So that's my family there on the Pettus Bridge with my other family, BBD.
Yeah, Belle Biv DeVoe right there.
Yeah.
Now you know. Belle Biv DeVoe, now you know. So that was, once again, it was kind of one of those things if somebody gives you a story, and I love causes. And, Katrina Norris out of Selma, Alabama, and Birmingham, Selma, called me up on the phone, and she originally had produced VH1. They kind of said, you guys should probably talk to BET about this. And we had, I think it was about maybe 22 days to pull the Selma celebration together. And we worked with Katrina, who was tireless in her efforts. And we worked with the city of Selma, the city of Birmingham. There's a brother, Mayor William Bell, who was the mayor of Birmingham, and Chuck Fausch was his chief of staff. And literally, the whole BET centric team. And I can't say enough about the people I worked with at BET, who were nothing short of amazing. We all literally came together and literally just banded together. And there's a host of musicians, so it was Dougie, Dave Koz, Bill Withers came out, BB Winans, of course. We had Native American chiefs.
Oh man,
Nice.
6 or 7 choirs that came out for it. Artists ranging from Aloe Black, D Nice was one of the producers of it. MC Light, Dougie, of course. And I'm trying to think of the record. We pulled together some classic hip hop records that Self Destruction.
Oh, Headed for Self-Destruction.
Right.
Yeah.
So we had Daddy-O from Stetsasonic, Dougie.
Oh, wow.
Nice, MC Light. So hip hop, gospel, Vanilla Ice, BB, and Vanilla Ice one was interesting because like on that one I got a little criticism, like, why are you having a white hip hop artist on it? When I called him up, and we worked with him in the Soul Train Awards one year, just a nice person, and he was one of the early quick people to say yes, that he wanted to participate in it. And then we wove in the city of Birmingham, and I should mention, by the way, that Harry Belafonte and also Tony Bennett were consulting with us on it because they were actually in the original march.
Okay.
And Harry and Tony were both coming. Harry ended up getting pneumonia right before the show, and no one was advising him to show. No, Tony and Harry were going to come down on a jet that we had set up for them to come down on in the show. And listening to them tell stories about the original march was incredible. And Tony Bennett told the story of it rained a lot before the march.
Okay.
And the original site that it was going to be on rained out.
Really?
And
okay.
The original site that the music concert that was a part of it rained out. They ended up putting together, it was on a undertaker's lot, and the stage that they used was empty caskets.
No.
And they put plywood on top of caskets was the original stage for the music celebration as a march from Selma to Montgomery.
Wow.
And so like listening to them tell stories of it, and Peter, Paul and Mary, Peter Yarnoff from Peter, Paul, Mary, who was one of the bands in the original march. He came and was the one musician who represented it from 50 years earlier and performed on that one. And then we had Congressman John Lewis, Tom Joyner, a number of American chiefs. We had some of the marchers from Ferguson, which had just happened right around that time. And it was just a big celebration. It was a 4.5-hour show, and it was telecast live on pretty much every internet station or web known to mankind. And it was a 4.5-hour show, and everyone stayed in Birmingham or Atlanta because there were no hotel rooms for us in Selma. So we literally bussed everybody in from Birmingham and Atlanta, and it was just an incredible coming together of a wide array of different people. Bill Withers told stories of driving through Alabama in the 60s, and Dave Koz was on it. I almost have to look a list of that many musicians that were actually on it. And then we ended up cutting it to a 1-hour show, which was a piece of work. And then we aired it on 6 Viacom stations called a Roadblock, and at the same time. So there's a bit of the Selma story, but it was quite a piece. Gladys Knight, Lettuce City. It was like literally you could go on mentioning the amount of musicians that were in that show.
Yeah. Now, and also some of our viewers at home may have seen you on TV on the march on Washington with Mr. Al Sharpton back in August. Reverend Al Sharpton, I should say, back in August.
Right. So I have a tremendous amount of respect for Al Sharpton and the National Action Network. And when kind of hearing it, actually, Al B. Sure and BB Winans invited me to come down with them. And Al's a good friend and brother. And I mentioned BB and I met when I was 27 years old. So I've known him for over half my life. And he's my longest friend in the entertainment business. And BB sang an incredible song called Black Lives Matter. But I appreciate the work that the National Action Network does. And they are there, the glue for so many different things. And Reverend Sharpton would tell you that he and Mark Muriel from the Urban League and also Derek Johnson from the NAACP are very, very good friends. And they get a chance to work with each other. They do. So you had a lot of members of the Congressional Black Caucus that were there. Sheila Jackson Lee and Congressman Al Gray are the ones that me that kind of like stand out in my mind. But that was an amazing day, to be there and to think that 50 years ago, when I saw Martin Luther King III stand there and speak, that his father was at that very same spot 50 years. It kind of was a little bit chilling.
I can imagine.
I look back, I think I had on a T-shirt, and jeans, and some canvas boots. But everybody there was in suits. They were in shirt and ties and suits, and like the heat then with no air conditioning at all or anything like that, just a whole different world. But the passion that our ancestors and forefathers kind of came together to be there that particular day, and to have the opportunity to be there 50 years later and participate in history was an amazing and beautiful opportunity, and one that I certainly won't forget. The spirit and mission of what they went through that day during that period of time, we're living a different degree of it now. And that same passion we need to be living with today, because as much as there's been tremendous change, there are a number of things that are the same and some things that are actually worse. So to I guess shift the subject a bit, like at the time, our race, we were trying to get to the chance to do both. The need for that, of course, is probably as real today, if not realer than it was back then in the 60s. So I cringe sometimes when I hear people say that, and I don't feel like voting. Like, what are the alternatives? It's like, voting to me is more than just the act of going down there, but it also, voting to me represents being able to be called to a courtroom. If you're called to participate in a jury, a lot of times we're mystified when we get outcomes from jury trials and complain about them and say, "Wow, how could they have voted to let that person off?" Well, whoever it was that's in that jury registered to vote, and they're participating in their civic duty. And also being as a part of a member of a jury, that's part of your civic duty as well. So when you're complaining about the outcome of things, voting can make a difference.
Very true.
In a wide array of different ways, and that can never be understated, the importance of that.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, you're doing so much, I can hardly keep up. You wear many hats.
Well, I have a supportive family. I have a very supportive wife. My wife Rachel and my family are extremely supportive, and they've shared me for a number of years, both in travels and during COVID. I've been home a lot, so they're seeing me more. I hope they appreciate it for the most part, seeing me as much as they do.
Indeed.
But volunteerism is incredibly important to me. I've served on a number of different education and arts boards, but one of the ones that's passionate to me as well is I've been chairman of the United States Congress's charity since 2007. And I get an opportunity to interface with members of Congress and also tens of thousands of young people in the program across the nation who earn a congressional medal through volunteerism, civic duty. The program is encompassed with physical fitness, travel, and goal setting. So we have about 50,000 young people, 55,000 young people across the program nationwide, and it's made a real difference in the lives of young people in America, and it's one of my deep passions.
That's incredible. So Paxton, in 2006, I mean to cut you off because this is beautiful, but I've got to bring up another one of your accomplishments. So in 2006, you were appointed by the Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives to serve as a member of the Congressional Award Foundation National Board of Directors. Explain it to our audience and what's that about?
So, Speaker Nancy Pelosi, Speaker of the House from California, I'd been working with the award for a number of years as a board member, and I became vice chairman for a number of years. And the Congressional Award of Congress is only official charity. They're designated charity. So you got 435 members of the House of Representatives. Then you've got 100 members of the Senate. and they have one charity, and it's dedicated to the upliftment of young people. So I've got 3 youngsters in my house who I love, and I'm really, really proud to say that my oldest daughter has just earned her Congressional Gold Medal. So big testament to her mom, and myself, and and her aunt Wanda, who is her counselor. So it's where young people can enter. It's $25 to join, and we waive it for financial hardship. But young people can actually earn a Congressional Medal. It's not something that they win. It's not something that's given, but something that they earn. And it's through volunteerism instead of duty. So 100 hours of service for bronze, 200 for silver, and 400 for gold. And they can earn a medal, which is something that really, truly makes a difference in their life. And it's a meaningful accomplishment.
But shortly after that, you were elected to serve as vice chairman and then chairman of the board in 2007?
Yeah, that's through work. Literally putting effort and time into it. And it was the same thing for me to some degree at Viacom when I was working there. When I became chair of the marketing council, it's like you put the time and effort in and try to make a difference. To me, with any opportunity that you're given, that to me is the core of what it is. It's like, if given an opportunity, make the best of it.
From one chairman to another.
Yeah, Kim's the musical chairman of the board.
I'll take that.
Yeah. All right.
She's going to ask you a little bit about your position at Viacom.
So I've actually left BET. I after 6 years as a consultant and 18 years as an executive there, I moved on and was just blessed and thankful for the opportunity that Bob Johnson and Debbie Lee gave me to work there as an executive, and had a great career. But it was like literally after a 26-year experience, it was time for me to kind of move on. So I spend time now doing consulting work. And consulting work, serving on a couple different boards, and I'm just as enriched now by that. And then, of course, in last year, as a chairman of the founding partners group for the Washington Nationals Baseball Club, participated in the run that we had, which was the most unlikely and incredible experience to actually win a World Series title. And I should have brought the ring down with me too.
Yeah, we're going to get into that.
That's been kind of a wonderful piece as well. So I know the Viacom actually I left about 4 or 5 years ago. So great career, love the experience, still love the company. Have a lot of friends there and keep in touch with a lot of people there. But I have moved on now. So real pleased with my current life as well.
We saw you. We saw you jumping out of an airplane.
Yeah, that was with the Army Golden Knights. That was with the
we
U.S.
saw you
Army
jumping
Golden
out
Knights.
of an airplane. So
yes.
I said, is there anything that you don't do?
Yes,
I can be a thrill seeker from time to time.
Absolutely. Now, you were bringing up baseball just a moment ago. Of course, we know baseball is considered, to be America's favorite pastime, and it's one of my favorite sports as well. However, you actually own a team. That's what we're going to get into. The Washington Nationals. They won the World Series last year.
Yeah.
How exciting was that, Paxton?
So I was in Houston when we won, and I mentioned kind of like the most improbable experience. I went to a lot of the playoff games with my son here in Washington, and when we were leaving, one of the games that we lost, we lost every World Series game here in Washington, D.C.
Oh man!
And so he and I had a wonderful, incredible run during the playoffs when we beat the Cardinals and when we beat the Milwaukee Brewers here in DC, like sharing those experiences together. And one of the games when we were leaving one of the Astros games when we lost, my son asked me, why was I being so nice to the fans from Houston that were wearing the Houston Astros gear? And I said to him that, boy, if I was in Houston, I'd want people to be nice to me.
Well, yeah.
So, little did I know that I'd end up there for Game 7. And it was kind of an eerie thing. I counted afterwards, after like in the stands, looking at the amount of people that stayed over to watch the ceremony. It was maybe like 1,000, 1,200 people, maybe 1,500 max.
Wow.
And it felt really, really lonely being in a venue with about 45,000 people.
Right.
Cheering for the Astros. You're the minority being there cheering for the Washington Nationals. So I wore a blue Nationals jersey with a little small W on it.
Okay. You didn't want to be discreet.
Exactly. So we're the only team in the history of sports that have series. So i.e. Hockey, basketball, and baseball.
Right.
As you know, football is just a series of one game and you move on.
Right.
We're the only team in the history of all organized sports that have series to win every game on the road.
Oh, that's
so
awesome.
The Astros beat us 3 times in Washington, and we beat them 4 times in Houston.
Wow.
And so the experience was, that night was a little bit bashful.
Yeah.
Not trying to cheer too loud or anything, but you're sitting there in that park of almost 50,000 people.
Yeah,
happy as you possibly could be.
The home field advantage.
No, it was not home field advantage.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That didn't apply.
Right. But this was the outcome.
Right. It was the opposite of home field advantage.
This is the outcome of it. This is the World Series ring. I don't know how well you can see it.
Yeah, man. Beautiful. What's it like to own a team, Paxton?
It's a beautiful experience. It's a beautiful experience, and one that you kind of continually pinch yourself on.
Mm-hmm.
I mentioned earlier, I was born at Compton in 1960, and for us as African Americans at the time, you could never have a dream that, like, you could never think that you could end up being in an owner's box with a group of partners. The Lerner family, I have a tremendous amount of respect for them. I have 5 minority partners as well. Doyle Mitchell, Rodney Slater, former Secretary of Transportation, another guy, Raul Romero, Al Malden, and and JB, James Brown, who's a sportscaster on CBS Sports.
CBS,
Yeah, so a good group of people. And then the Lerner family are the principal owners. So they're like very wonderful experience with them, extremely respectful, great business people, and good decision makers. And we're participants with them and partners with them. We're what's called the Founding Partners Group. And just a little bit of history on that. The Washington Nationals were the former Montreal Expos. And back in early 2000, MLB at the time was thinking about shrinking and actually going from 30 cities to 28. And they were going to phase out the Expos and the Minnesota Twins. The Twins won the pennant, and the city of Minnesota and the citizens there ended up building them a new stadium. So instead of shrinking the Expos, MLB took over ownership of it. And they shopped it to Portland, Oregon, Las Vegas, Jacksonville, Florida, Northern Virginia, and Washington, D.C. Mm-hmm. And the then mayor, Tony Williams, and the city council voted to put up a $650 million bond and move the Expos from from Montreal to Washington. However, the caveat they put in there is that it had to have significant minority participation because they wanted African Americans to become owners and participate in the ownership of the baseball team. So there were 13 original groups that were bidding to own the team. Then it cut down to 8, then it cut down to 4. I joined the Lerners when it was at 4, and we ended up collapsing one of the groups into ours, led by a gentleman named Stan Kasten, who's now the president of Los Angeles Dodgers. And we were successful in getting the bid to purchase the team. And it was literally a life-changing, a life-altering experience, and it's been one of the, from a professional and just personal perspective, one of the greatest things I've been able to participate with. And I think the world of my partners, I think the world of the citizens of the DMV, and we've been embraced by Northern Virginia, PG County, Prince George's County, Montgomery County, Maryland, the whole of the DMV, and the citizens kind of embrace it. And this was the first championship for baseball in Washington since 1924. It had been that long. So, just a great experience.
The thing was the Washington Senators then, right?
Yeah, they were the Senators. That's correct. Yeah. They were the Senators. The team was originally founded in 1869 as the Washington Nationals, and it existed from 1869 to 1900. It went out of business, and then it reformed in 1901. And from 1901 to 1962, it was the Washington Senators. And then the Senators moved to Minnesota, became the Minnesota Twins. Then they reformed again. And in 1974, moved to Texas and became the Texas Rangers. So this was the first time for baseball coming back to Washington in 2005, and then we were successful, and we came aboard during the 2006, the beginning of the 2006 season, and built a new stadium which opened in 2008.
Yeah. Has baseball always been a passion of yours?
Yes. Baseball, basketball, and football, but baseball and basketball, number one, number two. And I still play basketball now on Sundays.
Oh, okay.
We got a thing called the Pit, which is an outdoor half court here at the house.
Yeah.
And
sometimes you got to mix basketball with the football.
Yeah. Well, actually, that's true. A lot of people call it prison ball. Or
we're
whatever,
gonna show something in a little while. They had me rolling yesterday. Paxton out there tackling people on the basket.
Right?
It's not for the faint of heart.
Yeah. I see that. I might have to come play one day. I got to get my strength up though. Yeah. But back to baseball though. Ken is also a big fan of baseball. We were talking about Cecil Fielder and all of that yesterday, him being from Detroit and whatnot.
See, that was my dream, was to play left field for the Detroit Tigers. Wow. I could hit, I could run. I played on a high school team. Hit and run, but I didn't have an arm. Being in left field, you got to throw it.
Right. I played shortstop, by the way, so not you don't have to throw it that far.
Infield, second base. But man, that was my dream, to play left field for the Detroit Tigers, man. And hey, congrats to you for
absolutely
the team, being part of this Washington Nationals. So to get away from baseball, since we can't play
virtually.
Yeah. Hey, I'm told you do a lot of volunteer work and you're involved in several charities. Would you share with us some things?
Sure. The Herbie Hancock Institute, I mentioned Herbie earlier, who's been a lifelong friend as well. Herbie Hancock Institute, which is a jazz-based organization in the education space. Prior to that, originally was called the Thelonious Monk Institute of Jazz, and had been part of that organization since the late 80s, early 90s, on and off, and have been a member of the board, first the board of trustees, and now the board of advisors. And I think the world of the organization. They do meaningful work with jazz in public school systems, and then they select a group of students from around the world each year to come to the United States to learn from various jazz masters. And Herbie's been instrumental in the organization, but Terrence Blanchard as well, who's been the artistic director, and Terrence is an incredible writer. I think he's one of the most brilliant minds in music that's come along. And for me, of the kind of younger composers, he's been like the amount of film scores and different pieces of music he's been a part of has been nothing short of amazing. So, and then the Washington Performing Arts that I mentioned earlier, and then Congress's official charity, the Congressional Award as well.
I think we have a photo of that Congressional Award.
Yes,
we just did our virtual gold medal ceremony last Saturday, and it's up somewhere. I'll be able to give you guys a piece of it, but it's going to be up for a while. In the past 40 years, we've had the gold medal ceremony here in the Capitol in DC, and because of COVID-19, weren't able to do the typical June ceremony, so we kind of pivoted to virtual, and had young people and a wide array of different board members and different talented people on 4 different panels that we streamed live last Saturday afternoon. And then the virtual gold medal ceremony, we shot across the city of DC, and we picked everywhere from the Capitol itself to the MLK Memorial, the Washington Monument, the World War II Memorial, where we incorporated, in the baseball stadium, where we incorporated parts of that into the show. Trying to do our best to the young people. We were really, really sad that they weren't able to come to Washington. We're close to 500 young people who've been coming in town now to receive their gold medal with their families. And it's something that they've worked, many of them, over a 3 or 4 year span of time to earn. So when we're able to host it in the visitor center or the Cannon building, here in the Capitol. To not be able to do that this year we felt really kind of very sad about it. So we did our best to make the best of it and put together a virtual ceremony.
Now, you also have a company by the title Liquid Soul. From my understanding, you are involved with promoting and marketing some big blockbuster films.
Yeah, so my partner Tyrell Whitley is the founder of the company, and I think Tyrell's a genius. He's an engineer by training and is very much kind of a metrics type person. But overall, it's interesting. He's somebody who has an engineering background with the amount of creativity that he has. So in my post-BET life, Tyrell offered me the opportunity to partner with him, and then I opened a DC office. So he's everything from Blackish to Empire to Power, Rosewood, loads of Spike Lee movies that he's worked on. We've worked on two Tyler Perry movies, and then the crowning glory was Black Panther.
Rest in peace, Chadwick Boseman.
Rest in peace, Chadwick Boseman. Yeah. So amazing project. And then there's a lot of slate of films that we still kind of like in the process of kicking right now. Brian Banks, The Hate You Give. And Tyrell works really closely with Congresswoman Val Demings out of Florida. She was one of the consideration for VP nominees.
Right.
Disney is actually in her backyard in her district. And so each year during the Congressional Black Caucus, come out with a project. As a matter of fact, tomorrow, the CBC is doing a number of panels, and Liquid Soul put together two panels, one at noon and one at 1 o'clock. So if you happen to Google Congressional Black Caucus, the Congressional Black Caucus weekend was done virtually, much like the Congressional Award event. And it's starting tomorrow online. So I'm sure you can Google it and kind of find it. But Liquid Soul did two panels, and I was able to host one with Isaiah Thomas and Gina Belafonte and Victoria Rao, and it'll be on tomorrow at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And then Tyrell hosted a panel at noon. So I'm asked sometimes, like on the whole thing about BT, what my life now versus my life then. I had an incredible run there and a 26-year experience and an overwhelming amount of memories. But to me, the things that I'm doing now are just as enthusiastic to me, and approach them with the same degree of challenge. And I love where I'm at this point in my life with me as a entrepreneur, which to me, much like basketball, entrepreneurialism is you eat what you kill. And it's up to you to be as creative as possible, because if you're, I think, who was it? Andre 3000, who said in one of the lines, I don't make you move.
If you don't move your feet, then I don't eat. We like naked.
So that's exactly where I'm at now, and it presents a challenge every day. Yes, and one that I mentioned, at the beginning of COVID, it's like when you kind of like pull yourself together and you think like, I can kind of like cower and let these things run over me, or I can apply myself and be as creative and energetic as possible, and put things together and win. And so that's very much where I'm at this point in my life.
Yeah. Well, I don't see how you find the time to do all of this, but somehow you make it work.
Well, I mean, it's like our children now are at a point where each of them kind of have their own things that they're passionate about, and it's been wonderful seeing them grow to find themselves as young people. And like, to me, part of who I think choosing a proper mate in your life is one of the most important decisions that you can make, and I'm sure each of you would probably agree with that's important. So I've had a extremely supportive partner and wife who's been able to keep me together, keep our family together, and we've all grown in the process of it. So that's been one of the greatest blessings of my life, and something that's helped me fuel me.
Absolutely.
It is definitely a blessing to have exactly what you just said, Hey, but I'm going to get back to sports again. I understand that you're also a partner in the Washington Castle World Team Tennis League and governing board member of the Global Sports Summit. What exactly is that, and what does it mean?
So I'll start with the Global Sports Summit first. The Global Sports Summit is a sports owners conference, and it's literally owners of teams from baseball, MLB, NBA, NFL, Major League Soccer, World Team Tennis, NASCAR. And it's a conference where literally owners across a wide array of different idioms of the sports genre come together and network, present ideas, best practices. We learn from each other. Who's doing interesting things in technology, from wiring a venue to security, what are the newest security measures that are going on across the world. And it's a worldwide body. It's more U.S. owners, but it's a worldwide body. So I was invited to it originally as an attendee, and then over time had the opportunity to come into the partnership and kind of helping put the whole thing together. So that's kind of, from a business end. And then the Castles, World Team Tennis was founded in the 70s. I think it was 74 by Billie Jean King. Okay. And much like the tennis that you see at the U.S. Open or the French Open or Wimbledon or whatever else it happens to be, it's generally singles, men's and women's singles, and then men's and women's doubles, and and mixed doubles. So World Team Tennis, you bring all of that together. Mm-hmm. And so there's men and women's singles, men and women's doubles, and then mixed doubles. And the scoring is 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you collect the team scores of all of the different sets. Oh, so you can win something 5-0 or win something 6-4, and those numbers tie together. Then you add all the numbers up across the board with it. So the Washington team, which was founded by Mark Ein and named the Castles after one of his businesses. It just happened to be one of the more successful franchises. And so I was able to, in my post-BT life, Mark was kind enough to let me join the owners group. And this was the outcome from that. Let's see if I get it right. So this is from the tennis. On the tennis side as well. So the rings are my Johnston's rings, Super Bowl rings, and everything. So he won one championship, then lost one year, then won 5 in a row. So this ring here has actually 6 of the championship trophies in it. And I was blessed to be part of that group as well. So you've heard me use the word blessings a lot, because that's kind of been a lot of what my life's been about. And then I'll just throw in, so my mother, the most tremendous influence on my life. And I'm the youngest of 6 by natural birth and 2 by adoption. And as you can imagine, being born in Compton in 1960, there was nothing kind of gilded about anybody's life, and there was no silver spoons or anything like that. So my mother has been the greatest influence on my life from the beginning. And then read the Bible. I've read it cover to cover 3 times, but I read pretty much now every major holy book, and have learned from all of the different religions and thinking in the world in that regard, and beliefs. But then the most tremendous book to me, that single book that influenced my life, was by Napoleon Hill, and the book is called Think and Grow Rich. And I can never underestimate the amount of influence that book has had on my life. And it starts with for him, a positive mental attitude, and then number 2 is sound physical health. And so the mental attitude to me is what can drive you and carry you through a multitude of different things in your life. And that positivity that you have every day, by way of just continuing to imbue it upon yourself through affirmations of being positive, being thoughtful, of having harmony, freedom from fear, the hope of a future achievement, a labor of love, volunteerism, all of those things, economic security that enrich your life. I learned from that book, and has been just a continual reminder to me of what can be in your life.
Right. Yeah. One thing, you are very well rounded. I will say that.
Thank you, brother.
There you go.
So Pax, we want to talk to you a little bit about your gorgeous family, who we had the opportunity and the honor to spend time with in DC there with you, maybe 2 days, right?
It was.
You took us to an amazing Italian restaurant. And then, as I remember, it was Halloween. So we were all right. Rachel, your wife Rachel was Rosie the Riveter. And I was Naughty Vice Cop. And then your daughter, I think we said, who are you? And she had her hair up, and she said, I'm the Weekend. And we said, oh, it's on the weekend? She said, no, I'm the Weekend. And so me and Verdine looked at you, what's the Weekend? So she played us the music. So that's how we came to know the Weekend. Thanks to the kids. Now you, and Verdine said, I'll just go as Verdine White. Anyway, so what are the interests of your kids? And I think you have some dogs.
Yes, we have 2 old English bulldogs, and Max and Bella. Bella's the darker of the 2 there, and they're the heart of our family. And each of them have become just really, truly incredible individuals in their own right. So that's Maxie. So my youngest daughter, Chloe, she's really I think she could be anything. She's an amazing baker, to music producer, producing beats, to now she's in the TV production, and her and her brother are Geminis, and their personalities are widely different. And Lucas is the technology person, and asked him a while back what he wanted to be, and he said a video game designer. And I just kind of thought to myself, at one point in life, if a kid told you they wanted to be a video game designer 20 years ago, you say, yeah, okay, all right. No, what is he really going to do? Whereas now, with video game designer, you can end up ruling the world and making a big difference with one hit. And then our oldest daughter is kind of working through right now. She's been desiring everything from marine biologist now to thinking about being an EMT. So broad ranges there. And then I mentioned Rachel earlier. Rachel was on BET for about 10 years.
Yes.
And she, when the first time I ever saw her in my life was on a clip of her being interviewed right before she went to Miss Universe contest. She was Miss Jamaica Universe, and she, at the end of it, the interviewer asked her, what would you like to be? And she said, well, I want to raise a family. And I looked at that video clip and I said, her I would marry.
Yeah.
Her I would marry, never knowing that one day in life I get that opportunity. And I did it. So of any achievement I've made, that would be certainly right at the top of the salt shaker. So she's done a wonderful job of keeping our whole family intact. And any accomplishment I made, certainly she's a part of it. So that's our family, and then the dogs just kind of added love to it on top of everything else we had in the household. So I take them for a mile walk twice a day and keep them active and busy, and then they kind of spread the love throughout the house. And so that's the Baker family. I'd be remiss not to mention my mother-in-law, Jennifer, who's out of Jamaica.
I remember.
In Jamaica.
Right.
And then Shelley, back to that Halloween.
Yes.
Rachel and I have mentioned on a number of different occasions for you and Verdine to come spend Halloween with us was just a joyful experience. And people sometimes have the impression of Hollywood people that their whole life is only just around Hollywood, and that you're not real, that because you had a gilded life and had been around the music industry and a celebrity in your own right, and you do live, to some degree, that Hollywood lifestyle, that's not real, that you don't have friends in other parts of the country or other parts of the world that you go visit and spend time with. And so literally Verdine and Shelley flew to Washington to come hang with us and stayed at the Hyatt right down the road and spent Halloween with the family. And it was just, it brought just so much joy, and something that we've continued to remember for a long period of time. But let me just tell one story. And that's right. And Verdine and Ralph one time went to our friend's daughter's graduation from ninth grade, moving up from middle school to high school. Went to a party, and they were just like, hold up, Earth, Wind and Fire is inside. It was like the Hellmans in Bethesda, for them to show up at their party, just real meaningful, real life experiences. Let me share one Verdine story.
Sure.
When the night that Verdine stayed with me, I'm a memorabilia collector, and so I had some broke out a file with Miles Davis letters to Clive Davis, to Jack Gold, to the Columbia Records hierarchy during that period of time, and it was some notes from Cicely Tyson. So Verdine looks at it and he says, "Hey man, can I get a copy of this?" I said, "Yeah, bro." I said, in the morning after we have breakfast, we'll go over to Staples. So he kind of looked at me with a quizzical look on his face. And he said, Staples? I said, yeah, we'll go Staples and copy them in the morning. So he said, all right. We wake up, eat breakfast, get in my Jeep, and we drive over to Staples office supplies and copier store. So we're in there, and Verdine is looking around. The guy's looking at him, trying to figure out who he is. He knows him because, like, Verdine's casual. It's not like our casual. So no, he looks like a rock star all the time.
Yeah.
So Verdine's looking around, and I looked at him and said, Verdine, have you ever been in a Staples before? And he's like, I don't think I've been in one of these before.
Oh, wow.
He said Staples last night. I'm thinking, like, wait, we play Staples a number of different times. Like, how we going to LA?
He thought it was a restaurant.
The Staples Center.
Yeah. Wow.
Oh,
Well, that's a pretty great story.
yeah.
So, Paxton, are you ready for some questions and comments?
Cool.
Yeah, from the viewers at home.
Yeah.
From the viewers at home.
Well, here's one from my buddy Linda Lane. Your theme song, Paxton, should be "You've Got the Magic Touch." For the great influence you've been with your contributions and bringing people together.
Thank you. I walk in tall footsteps. I walk in very tall footsteps. And I mentioned earlier, we talked about Eddie Levert, and the other influence, great influence in my life has been Harry Belafonte. And I was just with him in March for his 93rd birthday. And the Christmas before that, I was able to take my whole family over to spend time with him and his wife, Pam. And it's like to be able to be around people like that and learn from them and spend time with them and be in their shadow and in their footsteps. There's nothing more amazing than that.
Yeah, Miss Kathy Hawthorne, she says, Paxton, now that you experienced That's My Story, would you say this was one of the best produced shows to showcase a person's story? So I guess next time you produce, you have 3 of the best to call on.
I love it. The magic sauce that I learned yesterday behind this, by the way, is Taz.
Yeah. Shout out to
producer,
Taz.
and she was just like her spirit that she imbued upon this for the 3 people that you see on the screen was very warm. And I met her yesterday for the first time, but she was one of those people who, when you meet her, it felt like you've known them for a long time, and that she just puts you immediately at ease and gives you a comfort. And candidly, I think that's probably why this show is successful, with her as the magic sauce behind the 3 people that you see on your screen.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's
Very
wonderful.
true.
Thank you so much, Ted, for
Very
your
true.
comment.
Yeah.
And compliment within the comment.
Right, there you go.
Yeah. Is there another one?
Ladies and gentlemen at home, if you have a question for Mr. Paxton Baker, here's the time to send it, and you can get a direct response.
So Jerry, earlier I saw on the private chat on the side, one of the questions to me was on my activism.
Yeah.
Right. So I would throw in that to me, clearly aware every single day that I've been alive that I'm a Black man. Every single day I'm alive, I'm aware of that. I don't think that we need to think about it ourselves. Like, I don't think to myself, oh, I'm a Black man every day, but I am.
Right.
And I'm reminded that by society and by living. I don't think that, like, certainly for myself, it's not like I encounter racial situations every day, but certainly they're random and periodic on a regular basis. And I think from my end, I would not have preferred to have been born anything else. Not that I would have had a choice, but It's been certainly my greatest blessing, probably more than anything, is having been born that. I very much consider myself an American. And I remember listening to Malcolm X, who I listened to a lot as a kid. And early on, I ate a number of the Black Panther programs, Black Panther breakfasts a number of different times. And for me, activism is not something that I necessarily have to wear on my sleeve every day. And but to me, my conduct as a person, I visited all 50 states, and it's interesting. One of the things I took away from it was the sameness of so many different things. And so when you're driving around in Vermont or Maine or New Hampshire, which were some of the last states that I visited, my wife and I took a trip and kind of came up on that one at the very end of it. But I went to Wichita, Kansas with Earth, Wind & Fire on tour. in the same year I did Nebraska for the first time, one with Earth, Wind, and Fire, and one with my family, is the sameness of different parts of this country. In rural America, the difference between rural America and urban America and the capital cities and the larger pieces. But there's a mosaic that I think this is what Dr. King really was trying to get at, is there is a sameness of people, whether or not we believe it or not. There is a sameness of people. And our shared experiences certainly have the opportunity to be greater than the disparate experiences that we get. So for me, it's not something I necessarily need to wear. My mother taught me to be a good example, and that's something that I work to be on a regular basis. My activism has been everything from when I became chairman of the U.S. Congress's charity. When I first entered the board, I was the only African American on the board. And it's certainly overwhelmingly integrated. When I joined the Viacom Marketing Council, I was one of two people of color out of roughly 35, 40 executives. And before I left, I integrated it. A number of the things that I've done, I was the first, and many times even still, the only African American in the room. And it's not something I need to wear on my sleeve. It's a reality of what it is that I'm doing. And so for me, by excelling and being the best at what I can do, and living that example, that's something to me is very much a part of who I am. On a real life piece now, there's a councilman in my county, Will Jawando, who is the only African American councilman on the Montgomery County Council right now, working with him on developing legislation and balance and fairness. So in Montgomery County, as African Americans, we're approximately 18% of the population of a county of roughly 1.2 million people, the largest county in the state of Maryland, one of the most affluent counties in the United States, working with him right now on reimagining policing. And, there's debates on which word should be used, defunding policing, which really throws a lot of people off, to, for me, the term reimagining policing, which I really like a lot. On that one, on that one, being very active with him right now and working with him on legislation to change things. So up until last year in Montgomery County, if a police officer came in someone's home and fired a weapon, that was investigated within the police force. And Will was able to set that up to change it where it's an independent state agency now, which investigates police shootings. Now currently working on changing that on the balance for a police officer to move up. How you do it, part of it is the amount of tickets you give out, and changing to make sure that we're not on the downside of that. Right now in our county, approximately 8% and change is either a black person or a Hispanic person out of 10 people that are stopped. And clearly that's not correct and should not be the case. So from my end on working on meaningful things and literally starting at home first, then kind of building out from there. I also work with a number of HBCUs. Okay. And I work with Virginia Union University out of Richmond under like one of my accounts. And then also under Liquid Soul Media, we work with the CIAA, which is the oldest HBCU conference for basketball. Under the NCAA Basketball and Football Sports Conference. And they've got universities from Winston-Salem State to Bowie State to Johnson C. Smith to Dillard. Yep. Yeah, so working with HBCUs. Then in addition to that, I run a Black business myself. Yeah. And I encourage everybody out there to work with Black businesses and shop with Black businesses and also have bank accounts in Black banks. One of my colleagues with the baseball team is Doyle Mitchell, who was the CEO and a third generation banker from Industrial Bank here in Washington, D.C. So, and then also just on a really personal note as well, I have a wide array of friends. And I have white friends, I have Black friends, I have Jewish friends, I have Latino friends, I have Asian friends, I have Muslim friends, and I think that people should integrate their friendship circle. Yeah. And open-minded. Interesting for us is 100% correct, Jerry. As African Americans, a lot of times we sometimes can look at somebody else, and I was asked this many times when I was running Centric and BET Jazz, like, did we hire white people? And the answer was yes, we did. And on our award shows, Soul Train Awards, we made sure that the teams and crews that worked on them were integrated. And so it's not just like looking at somebody else saying, hey, you need to integrate toward us. But for me, it's an open-mindedness, and certainly among friends, to have a friend group that's not just people of your race, but a friend group of other races as well. And truly being open-minded and having that as part of your mosaic, and not looking at other people for change, but starting change within yourself. So for me, it's not so much a matter of my daughters march on a regular basis since George Floyd's killing, and I appreciate what they're doing. We've been very supportive. In particular, our youngest daughter has been very much an activist in that regard. But part of what I try to tell her is it should end. It's like there's another outcome for it. And to me, the outcome of what we're dealing with now is legislative change in the political system, of legislation change, of things that are sustained beyond one moment or one incident is change. So I'm really concerned about the courts right now with the direction of that. But for me, voting, literally, I pray that everyone listening to this is registered to vote and is planning on voting. And then to bring it back once again to, should you go to court? If there's never any Black people in a jury, that's because we weren't registering to vote and participating on that side. Right. And so how can we ever hope to have justice if it's always us not participating in the jury system? So when you get asked to go to jury duty, to show up and do it, because that's important. It could be, I wrote a piece which CNN picked up. Thank you to Wolf for that CNN picked up. And I mean, part of it I gave. If you Google it, it's on CNN.com. To me, kind of like a blueprint on how you could actually help if you're white, how you could actually save someone's life, and like a blueprint of things that you can actually do. So I encourage. To me, it's about being encouraging, and it's encouraging as much as possible. And so simple things like that, to me, integrate your own household with friends and open-mindedness, Jerry, to use a word that I love and a phrase that I love.
Mm-hmm. Oh, very well said, man. And
thank you.
Always try to lead with love,
Yeah.
I think that's the key. And music helps a lot. We said that on one of our other episodes.
About it. No question about
it. Brings people together,
Yes, it does.
That's a magic sauce within the music that is beautiful,
Yeah, it is. I have to say this. Journalist once wrote about the chairman of the board. It says, what does the chairman of the board and Martin Luther King have in common? And it was they bring the races together. Just like you said, music. And that was pretty strong, for him to come out and say that, what we have in common, because like Jerry said, music. So, Paxton, how can people find you on your social media?
Oh yeah, links.
At Paxton Baker. At Paxton Baker on Twitter, and then Paxton K. Baker on Instagram and Facebook.
Okay.
And Paxton, we all saw you, by the way, at the March on Washington in August, and that was thrilling to see you next to Al Sharpton and doing your thing.
Thank you, sister. Thank you. I'm hoping to do more with him soon. He's been Reverend Sharpton's been very supportive of me personally. In particular, in my post-BET life. I worked with him a number of times while I was at BET, but he's been extremely supportive of me personally. And for mine right now, about to do some interesting things with them, and I'm really very much looking forward to it. But I encourage everybody to join the National Action Network as a member, and also the NAACP. But I think I've had the opportunity to meet Derek Johnson and speak with him. I think he's a great leader, and I certainly would say the same about Mark Morial, who I've known for a long time from when Mark was mayor of New Orleans. I'll end with, Shelley, I'm not sure how much more time we have, but my family and I went to the Whitney Plantation outside of New Orleans this year. We went down there. We drove down to New Orleans on the 4th of July week. We were out on the road. We take a big, long road trip across the country each year. My children have now seen 34 states, and many of them we've actually driven to across the country. We take a big trip every year. And we went to the Whitney plantation. My wife kind of sussed that out for us as something for us to do. Google, actually not Google, but if you actually just go on iTunes or the iTunes App Store, you can download it. It's worth downloading it, then you get a chance to see it. But it's called Whitney Plantation. And what was so unique about that was the stories were told from former enslaved people's side of the story. And tremendous, just powerful, very spiritual plantation that we went to. When you hear the stories of some of them are overwhelmingly tragic, of what happened to a former enslaved person who ran away from the first time a person was caught. They would bring all the enslaved people out, beat them, and then brand them. That was the first runaway. The second one was to actually cut their ears off, and that was called cropping. And once again, in front of everyone. And then the third time, the beating, same thing, and then literally killing the enslaved person in front of everyone, dismembering them and putting the different body parts on pikes. The slavery in the United States was more horrific than it's been in any other culture. And I've studied many of them that have had slavery throughout time. But this was overwhelmingly prolifically dark. Post-slavery, in many situations, and as you know, Texas was certainly noted that in Texas, the enslaved people there did not even really know about the Emancipation Proclamation. And in Texas and Oklahoma, it was up to 2 years after the Civil War was over when slavery was still being actively practiced in those states. Yeah. Well, in Louisiana, Mississippi, Georgia, post the end of the war, people who were enslaved were not allowed to leave the plantation and were held there. And if you were running off, the Klan or various law enforcement at the time took you and physically brought you back to the plantation. So what happened at the plantation? The plantation store basically replaced the slave master. And in that front, what was called sharecropping was the clothing, the lodging, and the food which was given to you by the master when you were a slave, suddenly you had to pay for. So you were paying now to live in the slave plantation house. You were paying now for the dearth of the clothing that you had on your back, and you were paying now for the gruel, for the food that you were feeding, that you were being fed. And so at the end of each crop, there was a settling up. And if you didn't earn enough money to pay for the food and clothing and the housing, which was clearly below subpar, you were now actually in debt. And you owed money to the master and the general store for your living, which is basically the slavery that you were still continued to be kept in. So if you tried to leave the plantation, you were then beat and treated the same way for basically trying to roll out on a debt that you owed for just your living. Now, if you died, that debt went to your children or to the next of kin. And you would continue to be kept in slavery and in bondage. And you had to run away from that just like you did during slavery during the Underground Railroad. It was a different version of the same thing. The Whitney Plantation store closed in 1975, 110 years after the end of the Civil War. So a version of that continued to be visited upon people in the South who were enslaved. And that just deeply, deeply stayed with me. So when people talk about equality and how we're all equal and we all start from the same place, that's far from the case. So for us as a race to continue to know stories like that or learn stories like that, and that everything was not equal. Now that to me does not mean that that's a burden that you have to hold yourself and go through life thinking any less of yourself, but more just being aware of what we came from, what we continue to struggle from in real life on the other side of it. One of the most beautiful stories that I got at the very end of it, when you walk through this whole plantation, which was incredible. I'm taking photo clips of it, video clips from it, and like just dealing with the mental savagery of what our ancestors overcame. There was one beautiful story of a family, a couple that earned their freedom, and their great grandson was Ernest Morial, who was Mark Morial, the first Black mayor of New Orleans. Right. And then his son Mark ended up becoming mayor. So that day on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, Shelley, on that day on the steps of Lincoln Memorial, standing with BB, who I'd walked up on the stage with, I saw Mark, who I've known for literally about 20 plus years. And I said to him, Mark, my family and I visited the Whitney plantation outside New Orleans. And I pulled the picture up and showed him the picture that I took on the wall from his great-great-great-grandparents. And his father, who had bought his mother's freedom. And he teared up. He's like, man, that's amazing. I said, no, Mark, I took that picture because I wanted to share that my family and I had gone to the Whitney plantation and found, where your great-great-grandparents met, lived, and were freed from, and how moving it was to us as a family. And we just kind of gave each other a big hug on the other side of it. So there's loads of stories. All of us have an opportunity to overcome each and every day. Racism and the stains of it are just as real today as they've ever been at any point in our life. And each of you on the screen here with me have your own stories of things that you've overcome, that we know our parents have overcome and our grandparents have overcome. But more importantly, those lessons that they've shared with us that have made a true difference in our life, what we're sharing with our children, what we're sharing with our friends and the people around us. And I don't think that it's incumbent upon us to keep hate in our heart. As a race, we certainly have shown, sometimes so much more to the chagrin of other people. But what happened in South Carolina when they welcomed a young white boy into their midst to pray with them, who then unfortunately took upon himself to pull out a gun and shoot them. But the people in that church still did not hate that young man, what it is that he did. And so I encourage us to keep that love in our heart, to not become hateful ourselves right now. There's an example of that right now that we're looking at almost every day, unfortunately, on television. I don't think that in any way, shape, or form that we should be defenseless or lacking in the awareness of our environment and be soft, but do not be that person who hates. We are seeing it every single day we turn on the television. We're seeing hate in motion. And that's not my way. That's not the way of us as a race or as a people. But I encourage everybody to be extremely active and extremely vigilant, to vote and to do all the things that we can to encourage our local Black entrepreneurs, to encourage our local African-American politicians and hold them up, and hold up organizations like the National Action Network and the NAACP and the Urban League and other community-based organizations that are doing meaningful things in our community. So I thank each of you for the time. And Shelley, I love you. Ken and Ken and Jerry, I'm just meeting you both yesterday. I hope you have a friendship on the other side of it. And,
I'm gonna follow you on Instagram. All of that.
I thank you for your platform and for your encouragement and the love and tonality that each of you imbue, and amazing show. And I hope it keeps going along after hopefully the COVID ends shortly.
Yeah, hopefully.
Later. And I encourage African Americans as well. Right now, for the testing, I think the testing is 4% of the African American population. At some point, we are going to have to just show some degree of trust and become tested, because there's not going to be a cure unless people do have an open mind. So I'm not trying to tell anybody to be first. I'm trying anybody to be first. Yeah. But at some point, it does have to happen. And unfortunately, in our country, we have examples of how things have been done to us as a race on multiple occasions. So I understand the skepticism, and I don't ever want to tell anybody not to be skeptical, but certainly be open-minded, because if there's going to be a cure, we are going to have to participate in the pool, because unfortunately, we're about 50% of those who are affected. So we're going to have to be open-minded in that regard at some point soon.
That was a great history lesson. I hope everybody had the number 2 pencils out.
Yeah, I took a couple of notes myself.
It's amazing information. Now, Paxton, you hit on this before when you were speaking, and it just so happens it's time for us to announce who's going to be on the show next week.
Okay.
We hit on it already, but it's going to be the 3-time Grammy-winning legendary jazz composer, pianist, and radio personality. You know who that is, Paxton?
Drop it on me.
Ramsey Lewis.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Next week.
A giant. A giant.
But you brought it up first, so there you have it.
Okay. Please give me my love. All right,
Oh,
when
you
you
know
guys
well,
talk,
you know
please give me love. Okay.
Yeah.
Listen, we want to remind the folks at home, if you're on Facebook, again, make sure you like and subscribe to our Chairman of the Board Facebook page. If you're over on YouTube, make sure you like and subscribe to our official Chairman of the Board page. You can also find us on Instagram under That's My Story Show, as well as Twitter at S My Story That. So make sure y'all take all of that information down. And about time for a bathroom break and some dinner. But we really want to thank you all at home for supporting us week after week. We made it to episode 23. Please tell your friends about That's My Story. We want to thank Mr. Paxton Baker one more time for coming on and sharing his wealth of knowledge with us. Definitely inspirational. We hope you all at home.
Thank you for the invitation.
Oh man, it was awesome having you. So it was easy to take something, at least one thing from this chat, if not multiple things, you know, and apply them to ourselves. Because sometimes we feel like, oh well, I don't have time to do this, I don't have time to do that. But I mean, you're living proof that, you know, we make time for the things that we want to get done. So we appreciate you so much. So we're not going to prolong the time.
Okay.
Any closing words, guys?
This has been great.
Yeah.
This is great. Thanks, and thanks, Paxton. We love and honor you. Thank you.
I'm a huge fan. Huge fan.
Thank you, brother. Thank you.
Yes,
You're all very kind.
Yes.
Yeah, and
keep up the great work, Paxton. Keep up the
Thank
great
you,
work.
Shelley.
And in all we do, we encourage you to lead with love, folks. You know, spread love. You know, spread love. Smile at somebody today or tomorrow when next time you cross paths, and and hopefully we'll see some things turn the corner soon. You know, but until then, until next week, episode 24 with Mr. Ramsey Lewis. I think we're gonna sign off for tonight. We thank you, folks.
Once again, we thank our producer Taz Cole.
Yes, shout out to Taz.
We couldn't do this without Taz.
We cannot do this without her. Yes, indeed. So shout out to Taz behind the scenes. We appreciate you so much. And folks at home, we're going to see you all next week. We're going to go ahead and sign off. We say God bless you. Peace, love. Y'all have a wonderful night. See you next week with Mr. Ramsey Lewis. God bless you.